like, and make sure to engage in comments. Also, share this video to your friends and story lovers and click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Windorcraft for more real horror stories like this. It started as an impulse buy. Something about the mirror caught my eye at the garage sale. Maybe the ornate silver frame, or the way the glass shimmered oddly under the sun. It was old, clearly antique, with intricate carvings of roses and twisting vines. The woman selling it, an elderly lady with sunken eyes and a frail frame, smiled when I picked it up. "Ah, you've got a good eye," she murmured. "This one's special." I laughed, brushing off her words as a sales pitch. "How much?" "Take it for 20, she said. "A steal, really." I didn't need a mirror, but something about this one felt different, like it wanted to be found. I hung it in my bedroom, right across from my bed. That first night, I barely gave it a thought. But when I turned off the lights and rolled onto my side, I swore I saw movement in the glass. Just a flicker. A shadow. I turned back, but all I saw was my reflection, barely visible in the dim glow of my bedside lamp. I told myself it was just my imagination. The next night, though, it happened again. This time, I was staring directly at the mirror when it shifted. Not the glass, but the reflection. I was in bed, lying exactly as I was, but there was something different, something off. My face looked worn, tired, dark circles under my eyes. My hands were clutching the sheets like I was bracing for something. I blinked, and the image returned to normal. Sleep deprivation, I told myself. I had been working late, barely getting any rest. My brain was playing tricks on me. But then, the images got clearer. On the third night, I saw myself in the reflection sitting up in bed, staring at the mirror, only I wasn't moving in real life. My reflection lifted its hand and pointed toward my closet door. My stomach twisted into a knot. My closet door was open just a crack, and in the mirror, I could see something, someone, standing inside. I spun around so fast, I nearly fell out of bed. The closet was empty. My reflection, however, was still staring, still pointing. I didn't sleep that night. By the end of the week, I had stopped looking into the mirror completely, but it was always there, just at the edge of my vision, taunting me. I could feel its presence, like a cold weight pressing against my chest. And then, on the seventh night, I saw it. My death. It started the same way, me lying in bed, looking exhausted. But then, something changed. My reflection's eyes widened in terror. A dark figure loomed behind me, standing right next to the bed. My reflection struggled, thrashing, screaming. But I couldn't hear a thing. The shadowy figure pressed a hand over my mouth, and my reflection's body started jerking violently before going limp. Blood seeped into the sheets. I shot up in bed, drenched in sweat. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. My eyes darted to the mirror. The image was gone. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Maybe it was all a hallucination, a combination of stress and paranoia. But something deep inside me whispered otherwise, because when I turned my head toward the door, I swore I saw it move, just a fraction, as if someone had been standing there, watching. Every night, after that first horrifying vision, felt like a descent into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, lurking in the corners of my room even when everything seemed still. The mirror sat there silently, its surface no longer a simple reflection, but a portal to a realm of terror. I'd spend hours in the dark, eyes locked on it, feeling an icy chill crawl over my skin, as if the glass were whispering secrets meant only for me. I started noticing little changes almost immediately. The mirror's ornate frame, once a thing of beauty, began to look twisted, as if the intricate carvings were shifting when I wasn't paying close attention. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of strange, almost illegible symbols appearing along the edge of the glass. I would blink, and they'd be gone, leaving behind a residue of dread that made my pulse race. Every time I looked, I felt like I was staring at a dark mirror version of my future, one that I couldn't escape no matter how hard I tried. Unable to ignore the mounting terror, I turned to research, scouring the internet and old records for any mention of cursed mirrors or legends that might explain what was happening to me. I found stories of antique mirrors said to trap souls or even reveal grim truths about one's destiny. Some accounts warn that such mirrors could show you your death, an immutable fate you were forced to live out. The more I read, the more the pieces began to connect. I started wondering if my own fate was sealed in that cold, reflective surface. I began documenting every unsettling detail. I'd write down the exact time I saw a new vision, the precise way the mirror's surface seemed to ripple, and the feeling of unseen eyes watching me. One night, as I sat in a dark room with only a faint glow from a bedside lamp, I swore I heard a whisper, my name, drawn out in a voice that sounded both desperate and menacing. It wasn't a sound I could place, and no matter how many times I rewound the memory in my head, it left me more confused and frightened. Was it the mirror trying to speak, or was it something else entirely? As the nights wore on, sleep became a distant memory. I'd lie in bed, paralyzed by fear, feeling like every creak of the house was a footstep approaching. The mirror's power over me grew stronger, and its presence became an ever-looming threat. It wasn't just a passive object in the room anymore. It had become an active participant in the horror unfolding in my life. I could feel its energy seeping into every corner of my being, a relentless force pulling me toward a fate I desperately wanted to avoid. One particularly bleak evening, the air in the room turned unnaturally cold. I sat in silence, my eyes fixed on the mirror, when suddenly the surface began to distort like a pool of water disturbed by a stone. I saw shapes forming and reforming in the swirling patterns. A dark corridor, then a flash of a door, and finally, my own terrified face. In that fleeting moment, I caught sight of those piercing eyes behind my reflection, eyes that weren't mine. They were filled with an emotion so raw and desperate that I felt my heart lurch in terror. It was as if the mirror was offering me a glimpse into a parallel nightmare, one where every moment was a countdown to an inevitable, gruesome end. In the midst of that terror, an inexplicable urge overcame me, a need to confront whatever force was haunting me. I moved closer to the mirror, each step heavy with dread. My hand trembled as I reached out, almost compelled by some unseen power to touch its surface. For a split second, everything slowed down. I could hear my own heartbeat, the sound of my breath, and the soft, almost inaudible hum emanating from the mirror. The image on the glass shifted violently, and I swear I saw not just my reflection, but layers of memories, horrors, and shadows intertwining in a chaotic dance. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Shadows seemed to stretch and twist, forming grotesque shapes along the walls. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, like a chant reciting my fate over and over again. I was torn between the desperate need to flee and an even stronger compulsion to learn more about this curse that had taken hold of my life. I couldn't tear my eyes away, even as a voice deep inside screamed that I was in mortal danger. My mind raced with a mix of curiosity and terror. I began piecing together the fragments of information I had gathered. There were tales of a family long ago whose ill-fated lives were intertwined with a cursed mirror. Their legacy was one of sorrow and death, a fate that seemed eerily similar to the visions I was now witnessing. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that the mirror was not just showing me a random future. It was revealing a destiny, a chain of events that had been set in motion long before I ever laid eyes on it. In a final act of desperation, I decided to change my routine. I stopped going to bed at the same time, started leaving lights on in the room, and even invited a friend over for one of the nights, hoping that the presence of another person might break the sinister spell. But even in the light of day, or in the presence of company, the mirror maintained its eerie aura. It was as if darkness had seeped into its very core, tainting every moment with an undeniable sense of impending doom. One night, when I was alone again, the intensity reached a fever pitch. I was sitting on my bed, trying to calm my jittery nerves, when I saw the mirror's surface ripple in a way that defied explanation. A deep, resonant sound, a low, guttural hum filled the room, vibrating through the floorboards and echoing in my bones. I froze, unable to move, as the hum grew louder and more rhythmic, like the beating of an ominous drum. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, I noticed a figure emerging from the dark reflection. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if it had all the time in the world, yet every movement was heavy with intent. That figure, shrouded in darkness, appeared to study me with an unsettling calm. I couldn't tell if it was human or something far worse. It reached out a hand, and for a split second, our eyes met through the glass. The look in its eyes wasn't just cold. It was empty, void of any life or hope. I felt a shiver run down my spine as the realization hit me. This was no mere trick of the mind. It was real, and it was coming for me. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was locked in place by a paralyzing blend of fear and fascination. The mirror, with its cursed legacy and relentless pull, had become the center of a terror that I couldn't escape. It was a silent harbinger of a fate that was creeping ever closer, a fate that might be sealed with a single touch or a single glance. In that moment, I knew that the mirror wasn't just showing me my future. It was inviting it in, tempting me to step over the threshold into a world where death was not just an ending, but a beginning of something far darker. Then, as the night grew deeper and the hum of the mirror faded into an eerie silence, I heard a knock at my door, a slow, deliberate knock that sent my mind reeling. The sound was heavy and resonant, echoing through the quiet room like the toll of a death knell. I sat there, heart pounding, unsure whether to answer or to hide. Every instinct told me that whatever was on the other side was connected to that cursed mirror, that the shadow that had haunted my reflections was now ready to cross over into my life. I stood up slowly, each movement weighted with dread, and approached the door, feeling the ominous pull of the unknown with every step I took. I stood frozen, my breath shallow, my heartbeat a deafening drum in my ears. The knock at the door came again, slow, deliberate, as if whoever stood on the other side already knew I had nowhere to run. I swallowed hard, my fingers trembling as I reached for the doorknob. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to turn around, to flee, but something, some unseen force, urged me forward. The air in the room thickened, pressing down on my chest as I twisted the knob. The door creaked open, revealing an empty hallway drenched in shadows. My apartment was silent, the world outside eerily still. But I knew, deep in my bones, I wasn't alone. A flicker of movement caught my eye. My breath hitched as I turned my head toward the mirror. I shouldn't have looked. The reflection wasn't mine anymore. The figure from before, dark, hollow-eyed, with an expression void of life, stood in the glass, staring back at me. But this time, it wasn't just watching. It was grinning. The kind of grin that made my stomach lurch. A twisted, knowing smirk that sent ice crawling through my veins. Its lips moved, though no sound came. My reflection, my own mouth, should have mimicked the movement. It didn't. I took a step back. The figure did not. Instead, it reached out, placing a pale, elongated hand against the inside of the mirror. My blood ran cold. A whisper curled around my ears, like smoke. A voice so low and guttural, I felt it more than I heard it. Almost time. The room dimmed as if the very light was being drained. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows twisting unnaturally. I stumbled back, my pulse hammering in my throat, but my feet felt heavy, rooted to the floor. Then the mirror started to crack, not in jagged lines, but in purposeful, intricate patterns, as if something on the other side was carving its way out. Each fracture shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and the humming, deep, rhythmic, ancient, filled the air again, vibrating through my bones. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. A final splintering crack split the mirror from top to bottom. The glass didn't shatter, didn't fall to the floor. It peeled back, curling outward like a doorway being forced open from the inside. And then a hand emerged, not a reflection, not an illusion. A real, solid hand, pale and clawed, fingers stretching as if relishing their newfound freedom. The arm followed, impossibly long, impossibly thin. The figure pulled itself through, piece by piece, stepping into my world, its presence so overwhelming, so utterly wrong, that every cell in my body screamed in silent terror. I stumbled backward, slamming into the wall, my mind racing for any kind of escape. My phone. Where was my phone? My legs refused to move, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The figure straightened, its head tilting ever so slightly, as if adjusting to its new reality. It took a single step forward, its hollow eyes locking onto mine. Then slowly, ever so slowly, it raised one hand and pointed at me. The whisper returned, a mere breath against my ear. "You let me in." The lights flickered. A deep, bone-chilling wind howled through the room. though the windows were shut. The shadows lengthened, curling toward me like living tendrils. And then the door behind me slammed shut. Darkness swallowed everything. And I felt it, breathing right next to me. Click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Windorcraft for more real and true stories like this.